Good afternoon, everyone. This is the third plenary session, and we have the last keynote speaker, Laurence Lolo Berger, the Research Director, National Center for Scientific Research, CNRS, UMR Triangle, École Normale Supérieure de Lyon. The title of the keynote speech is New Global Order and Post-Western Sociology. Let me introduce Professor Laurence, please.
Excuse me, you open the...
Professor Laurence, you can go, yeah. Please turn on your mic. Your mic is off. Okay.
Is it okay now? Yes. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for the organizer of the second Congress of East Asian Sociological Association for inviting me to this very important conference. I am really delighted and really honored. So thank you so much to all the colleagues and the scientific committee members for inviting me. So I will introduce my topic about new global order and post-Western sociology. So, what is? Oh là là, c'est pas possible ça. So, can you see me?
Yes.
Can you see
Yes.
me?
Yes,
okay.
Laura.
It's very strange. I don't know why. Bon. So if you can see me, okay. So I cannot see you. It's very strange. Oh, okay. So I would like to precise the social sciences and particularly sociology have long been almost monopolized by Western cultures. They were born in Europe for the most part. However, the Western world had lost its hegemony over the production of their paradigms around two central narratives: the superiority of Western civilization through progress and reason, and the belief in the continuous growth of capitalism. So I would like to offer a glimpse beyond the East and the West by opening the horizon to a wealth of self-directed narratives by societies worldwide. So it means to open a post-Western space where Western and non-Western sociologies can intersect and interact, forming shared divergent understanding of a myriad of theoretical and empirical ethnoscapes. So for 15 years, with my Chinese colleagues and now with my Korean and Japanese colleagues, we have co-produced a new epistemology to open the post.
Professor, your screen.
So from co-production on an epistemology about post-Western sociology with Chinese colleagues, but also now Korean and Japanese colleagues, we have proposed a post-Western sociology based on an ecology of sociological knowledge from Asia to Europe. And so we have already published many books, okay? So now I would like to introduce my first point about Western hegemony and we imagine West. So Western hegemony can consider a first Eurocentric standpoint was characterized by the two principles, Orientalism and bifurcation. And it means the West was seen as being different from the West of the world. So we know, of course, Orientalism in the Eurocentric standpoint was developed through post-colonial studies, of course, Homi Bhabha, Edward Said, Spivak, and so on. And progressively, we have a consensus from the idea of the crisis of Western civilization, and we have entered in a gradual de-Westernization process of knowledge and co-production of non-Western and hybrid knowledge. So Western hegemonies have received criticism from non-Western and Westernized intellectuals. And for example, Rewin Cowell has produced an academic canon to explain how the academic canon was formulated in the United States. We also can consider post-colonial studies, of course, represented a very important step in the production of this process of de-Westernization of sociology. And I think the concept of third space developed by Sucheta Patel was very important. So for over 3 decades, we also have in Latin America with Quijano, Mignolo, Dussel, and so on, a very important approach about the theorization of the concept of coloniality. But we also have a proposal in the Arab world. And for example, Sari Hanafi, the president of the International Association of Sociology, also argued that the post-colonial approach is not sufficient to create new conditions for sociologists to be in dialogue. And I think he proposed a supplemented concept, a post-authoritarian approach. This means the impact of local authoritarianism in the Arab world. So what does it mean? It means we have a diversity, more and more diversity on Westernism, some more Eurocentric, some more Americanocentric, either merging in intention, which is other. So it's very interesting to think in this way, the plurality of non-Western, on-Westernism and non-Westernism on a continuum, on a epistemological continuum. But in this context, I can notice now in different seminars or conferences in Europe, a kind of reimagine Westernism is progressively emerging by integrating fragments of non-hegemonic thinking while retaining epistemic frameworks derived from hegemonic theory. So in this global turn, I would like consider a new Eurocentric standpoint appears with new bifurcation. And I just would like to take an example with Paul Jobin. Paul Jobin is advocating for an understanding of the Anthropocene theory. And he considers the theory of Anthropocene, very popular now in scientific academic field in Europe and also in USA. The theory of Anthropocene discourse for Paul Jobin, but I think I am showing this point of view, is another version of the capitalist white male who finds this narrative a renewed way to impose a kind of neocolonial domination. So it's very important to be involved in a very dynamic process to understand the complexity, the plurality, the diversity of the different Westernism and non-Westernism. But I will be more precise in 1 minute. So I would like to consider new Eurocentric standpoint and new bifurcation, which involve lines between the West and the rest of the world and the universality of Western theories. Even Southern standpoint has emerged and we refer to a relation position with global hierarchies forged by imperial relations. So the question, a new question for me is why we imagine West are reforming? Does the COVID context does influence this process? And we can okay, we have a diversity, the diversity of Eurocentrism and non-Western theories, but we have also to remember Ulrich Beck and Edgar Grande introduced the notion of a cosmopolitan turn, and it was very important because in this cosmopolitan turn, we can consider now the construction of non-Western West by certain Western scholars. Even we have this kind of, we imagine West. For example, Santos proposed to develop an epistemology of the South, and he invited us to move from an epistemology of blindness to an epistemology of saying. And Bambra proposed the theory of connected sociologies in arguing for recognizing historical connection generated by scientific hegemony. She now is more focused about the question of decolonization of sociological knowledge. And it's interesting to mention in Cambridge University, Ali Meghi considers sociology did not become colonized. It was always colonial to begin with. So we also have to take account new forms of methodological cosmopolitanism in Europe, and especially in Eastern Europe. For example, with what Blagojevich called the European semi-periphery, or what Sveta Koleva developed about non-hegemony sociology in Central and Eastern Europe, in arguing the view of existing unity in the totalitarian experience of Eastern European sociology. So, okay, we have this complexity about, if we are deconstructing, of course, West and West, we have this kind of complexity. In Asia, I would like to quote firstly, the notion of Easternization of the East, produced by Professor Kim Seung-kook, which is very interesting and very important, very important concept, because it's a way to open our space about the plurality of epistemic autonomies in East Asia. And it's very interesting because it looks like a kind of matrix of epistemic autonomies today in non-Western Asian countries. So, you know, by heart, the creation of the East Asian Sociological Network in 1992. This book, very important book, published in 2014 by Kim Seung-kook, Lee Pelin, and Shujiro Yasawa. And so, facing to epistemic injustice, Asian sociologists have produced spaces, epistemic autonomy. What does it mean, the plurality of epistemic autonomies? So we can consider, for example, in China, in China, the question, the epistemic autonomy is oscillating between Sionization and universalism. And I have no time to precise how the history of Sionization, the concept of Sionization is a very old history in Chinese sociology. And it's very interesting to mention today a very important controversy about Sionization in the scientific field with CAU, which is France and Academies Dependent, and Refin, which is on the kind of methodological nationalism. But according to Professor Xili Zhong, discursive pluralism appears to be linked to a form of universalism containing a range of discourses that may be applied any time and any space. And Xili Zhong proposed a very, very important typology of indigenization process about, you can see on my PowerPoint. So it means in Chinese sociology, we have a strong debate which is opened about what makes epistemic autonomy. In my own work, I have mentioned different forms of epistemic autonomy. So we can historic epistemic autonomy, alternative epistemic autonomy, and local epistemic autonomy in Chinese sociology. So it does reflect the complexity and the strong elaboration of Chinese sociology. In Korea, we can consider a partial epistemic autonomy and consider Eastern, Western knowledge and Korea the relationship. So I already told about the theory of Kim Seung-kook about the Easternization in East Asia, of East Asia westernized from hybridization of Western and non-Western knowledge. Han Santing, Jung Ishim also supported about methodological cosmopolitanism in a very deep dialogue with Ulrich Beck. And we also have the question of the theory, very important theory of a Changkyuk about the compressed modernity and internalized reflexive cosmopolization. And this approach, and I will mention too, Kwang Young-shim about the double indigenization of social sciences. considering Western theories as indigenous and establishing the institutional symmetries and resisting forms of domination of disciplinary fields. So, in Japan, I think I have produced this notion, I have used this notion of unstable epistemic autonomy in mobilizing the work of Yatabe about the double process of pendulum oscillation between passion of the West and exaltation of the Japanese and Asian spirit on the one end, of going beyond modernity on the other end. So Shiro Yasawa demonstrated very well after 1980, the reappearance of forgotten pre-war authors, and now, like Dainomiya demonstrated, we have Japanese sociologists as Keiji Sakuta, Kuliha, and Mita, and Yama. They are developing their own concept in a kind of Western, in an epistemic autonomy way. So what about to co-produce post-Western sociology? So I think we have to work to think together about an epistemology continuum coexisting between the Western West, non-Western West, semi-Western West, Eastern East, non-Eastern East. And the challenge in the post-Western sociology is to establish a real dialogue between them and to produce different coalized knowledge. So it means we can produce, or we are producing already, an ecology of knowledge where diverse forms of knowledge may interact articulated through cosmovision. And in this theoretical perspective, of course, on this continuum, we can see some assemblages, tension, and cross-pollination of different segments from the ecology of knowledge. So, from in this way of thinking about post-Western sociology, I have distinguished different steps to produce post-Western sociology. So I mean, to take into account theoretical tradition, legacies, and controversies. The production of knowledge niches and located spaces. The third level, circulation of knowledge and new universalism. The first one, sociological transnationalism and global common space, and the process of co-production of coalized knowledge. Coalized knowledge in different spaces, in different times and spaces. But the question is, oh, I have made, okay. But the question is how to produce this post-Western space. We absolutely have to work about the gaps and intervals between the perspective, practices, and concept of Asian and European sociologies, and to be involved in an anti-poetic way to develop and developing and be able to develop cosmopolitan imagination. It means to invent post-Western methodology. It's also an hybrid sociology. We have to produce, to be able to develop a multi-sided sociology, co-doing fieldwork in a plurality of spaces, situation, context, and plurality. So in our way of doing research, we are doing fieldwork together, sharing fieldwork together, analyzing the material together, discussing the uses of concept together, co-producing queerized concept together. So in this perspective of post-Western sociology, I would consider this perspective is inscribed in a new academic global order. And why I am using new global order? Because I have noticed, for example, new post-Western assemblages East-South. East-South. No, Europe does not exist in this assemblage. It's very important, very interesting. For example, the sociology of BRICS. In the process of internationalization of Brazilian sociology, some cooperation have been established with Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and my Chinese colleagues, Brazilian, Russian, Indian, have produced, for example, 2 handbooks about social stratification or handbook of the sociology of youth breaks. In sociology of breaks, it's just an example. In sociology of breaks, new East-South assemblages have been established outside the connection Northeast. About post-Western assemblage West-East, I just would like to mention a beautiful research I have done with my Chinese colleagues about Motohiko Nagata in Japan, and Luo Honggong and Liu Chonghai in China, in Sichuan, and in Noda, and so on, about the question of disasters of equations of society, disaster and equation of society in Asia and in Asia and in Indonesia. And we have, together, we have produced common knowledge about, for example, social governance and biopolitics, about capital and social networks, about subjectivity and reflexivity, and so on. And it's another case of assemblage in new post-Western space, which does reflects another kind of global order. In my own work, I would like to mention I have produced very recently a book about the notion of compressed individual, but this book is a fruit of all my cooperation for 20 years with European, Chinese and Korean and now Japanese colleagues about compressed modernity and emotional capitalism and subjectivation. So it's just a little contribution. What about post-Western disassemblages? In the COVID context, the pandemic is producing new borders of knowledge by disrupting the circulation of ID, and we can observe in our countries how, in the context of the COVID, in the context of the COVID, fears, mistrust, violence, and moral vulnerability are developing more. So we have transnational geographies of overt, of deep anger and fear are born out.
Let's wrap it up. It's 30 seconds to go.
1 second, okay. So, the question of diffracted cosmopolis is a new concept to deal with the disemblanches in a post-Western space So I just would like to conclude. I think we have to develop new sociology, not an oligarchic or residual sociology, but a kind of sociology, post-Western sociology, which could be defined as a knowledge of hospitality. And however, we are still taking into account the fabric of reformulated epistemic inequalities and injustice in the academic world. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Orangs. Now we will proceed to the section D, the afternoon session of the second International Congress. Thank you. I will wrap up the keynote speeches here, and now it's your turn to each and respective sessions. Thank you.